Ena mana, ena reo, ena haifa, tena kotu, tena kotu, tena kotu katoa. It gives me very great pleasure to welcome you all here for this very, very special lecture tonight given by President Sikyong Dr Lobsang Sangay. He is the democratically elected head of the Tibetan people and the political successor to His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. He's an extraordinarily distinguished scholar. Got an LLB and a BA from Delhi University. He did his master's, went on a Fulbright and did his master's degree and then PhD at Harvard, and is an internationally acknowledged expert on human rights and self-determination, especially as it applies to the Tibetan people. So it's a very great pleasure for me to welcome Dr. Sangay here to talk with us about his life, his journey, and the struggle that Tibetan people have to maintain their culture and their identity and their traditions in the face of many who would like to see them disappear. In many senses, it's a familiar story, a story of colonial oppression and of disenfranchisement and disempowerment. And the whole challenge of being Tibetan in the face of that kind of oppression is extremely great. And so it's lovely that somebody of his stature is there to lead the Tibetan people, to gather up the diaspora, to cultivate and to nurture the traditions, and to build on the strengths that exist in Dar es Salaam and elsewhere that will eventually succeed in ensuring that this people regain their place in their own homeland. So without any further ado, it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the University of Otago, Dr. Lobsang Sangay.
Hello. Is it audible? Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Kevin Clemens, for your generous introduction, and it's a great honor to be here at University of Otago to share my thoughts on the issue of Tibet generally, as I was discussing what to cover. So many of you are students here, so perhaps I should start with my life story, then to navigate to how I got elected, because I'm also called the accidental president who just got elected because of karmic reason, not because even my mother believed that I would get elected. So your mother loves you the most, but in 2011, when I was running for the election, she did not believe that I would get elected. But here I am in my second term. So this is my first visit to New Zealand, a very beautiful, nice place. And I was told that when I get here, especially before leaving from India, I was told that at this time of the year here in Dunedin, it will be very cold. So I packed half my suitcase with all the warm clothes. Then it's lying useless now. So because when I flew from Auckland to here, the luggage for domestic flight, I think is 1/3 of what I can carry internationally. So I just came. In fact, without my suitcase, I put pant and a shirt in my assistant's bag, and here I am. So if there's a blizzard or snow tomorrow, I might be borrowing some of your jackets, and I'll take it to India as well. Thank you for organizing this event, and a great honor that we have a counselor also here representing the city. And for the first time in my life, I got Maori traditional greetings. So, coming to New Zealand, you have heard so much about the Maori tradition. To get the experience was very special for me. Now on to the story. Do you want me to go all the way back to 2,500 years and come, or so you all have whole night, huh? Past midnight. Hopefully the auditorium won't be closed by then. So here goes. When the first sun starts rising in this universe. No, I'm just joking. So I don't see any of you bringing blankets or something. So let me start with my late father. He was a monk in a place called Lithang in Tibet. In 1956, his monastery was bombarded and reduced to rubbles. So thousands were killed, and then he fled to Lhasa. He joined the guerrilla movement, and of all the things, he was selected to be in charge of arms and ammunition. Now, can you imagine? You're a monk one day, next day you are selected to be in charge of arms and ammunition. So he fought a few times, and then he fled to India with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And from my father's side, only he managed to escape. Rest, all his brothers and sisters were left behind. From my mother's side, every one of them managed to escape, except for one uncle who was airdropped back to Tibet and fought against the Chinese army and died. Now, as my mother and her family was journeying through the thick forest of India, the northeast of India, my mother was 17 years old. She slipped and broke her leg. Now, there's a huge family. So they had to decide now to continue to stay and take care of her, or the choice was leave her behind so that they can survive, because they were running short of supplies. So ultimately, they decided to leave her behind with her elder sister, and the whole family had to march on to India and say, we will meet in India. After 2 years or so, my mother managed to come to India. Finally, they did meet. And obviously, I was born, right? So she came. Then I grew up in a very small village called Lama Hata Basti, a place in Darjeeling. It's known for tea. So I grew up in a village. So, when I flew from Auckland to here, when I saw all these nomadic village areas, I could recall my good old days in villages. So here I was told that the farmers have, 30 acres or 300 acres or 3,000 acres of land and, 10,000 sheep and, 500 sheep, things like that. My family was 1 acre of land, 2 cows. Third was a burden because you have to cut your own grass, and a dozen or so chicken. So I used to go to the forest, cut wood for a home, cut grass for cows. I know how to milk cows and clean cow dungs. So next time when I venture out in the countryside, I can prove my credential as a village boy. So that's how I grew up, and then went to Tibetan refugee school. When I say refugee school, it was really of poor facilities. So I grew up eating lentil soup and rice. And there are Indian restaurants, you get dal and bhat. But there was watery dal, watery lentil soup, and rice was from subsidized shops. And then that's all, rice and lentil soup and rice every day for dinner for 10 days. 10 years, I'm sorry. So that was the facilities. And then the lunch was dumpling and curry. And if you get 1 piece of meat a week, you are lucky. And the dumpling was hard and dark. So if you throw it, it bounces higher. So only the thing that can prove Newton's third law wrong was our school's dumpling. So given the facilities, we were so very good at munching the dumpling also, because there were threads inside the dumpling and some sand also. So you munch on one side, right? And the other side, you have to spit out all the threads and sand, whatever is there in the dumpling. So when you go to Chinese restaurant, when you see the soft white dumpling, don't mistake it for our Tibetan school dumpling. It was not. So from there, I went on to Delhi University, where, as Professor said, I did my LLB and BA and LLB. Then I finally got Fulbright scholarship. To pursue my master's degree and then doctorate degree at Harvard Law School. Then I was employed also there for 7 years. So when I went to the Peace Center, when I met folks there, it kind of reminded me of your dissertation thesis and the PhD doctorate program. So I was just recommending our friend here, you just write your dissertation in the last year of your time and the last month of the deadline. So I did my doctorate, and then fortunately Harvard Law School employed me, so I was working there for 7 years. So I spent 16 years in the People's Republic of Cambridge. That's what is known as in America. So I was a full-fledged member of Red Sox Nation. So I'm a baseball fan, an American football fan. So if anyone is here in this room who dispute the fact that New England Patriots is not the best team in the world, I will leave aside my compassion and Dalai Lama aside and go toe-to-toe with you. Now, if New Zealand claims that your cricket team is the best team, I don't mind. Unless it competes with Indian team, then I might have to hedge my bet. And then in 2011, I got elected. So I had to leave America, leave my job. That was not that difficult, but leaving Starbucks coffee was a bit difficult, To switch to Indian chai was a bit challenging, but nonetheless, I've adapted now. So it's been 6th year now. I'm in my 2nd term. Now, how I got elected. So the story is, because you all are students here, so some of you might think that, because you are from farm area, because you are from refugee area, given your background and condition, you might not succeed. I think you do. In fact, when I was at Harvard, I went to Canada School to take some classes. As I was running for election, because I spent all my 16 years at Harvard Law School. Now, election came. So I had to rush to audit some classes on election campaign, how to be a good leader, communication. I was auditing classes. So as I was auditing, I was running and practicing or implementing those classes that I audited. So next time, 3 years later, when I went back to Harvard, I told them I audited those classes and I got elected. Now you all are taking classes for credit. You better get elected as presidents and prime ministers of your country because you took classes for credit. So finally, I got elected. Now, in 2011, the chances of me being elected was almost zero. As I said, my mother loves me, but she did not think I would win. Because the other candidates were former prime minister, the speaker and deputy speaker of the parliament, most seasoned diplomat, and private secretary of His Holiness Dalai Lama. All the veterans of the Tibetan world was there. So I was the youngest, least experienced, never worked in Dharamsala as an administrator or politicians, nothing like that. But then I went to Tibetan settlements. One thing led to another. The crowd grew in size because maybe there was Made in America or Harvard, tag on my brand, so to speak. So people got fooled, perhaps. Then in 2011, I got elected. Now, it so happened that we have 2 rounds, preliminary round and the 2nd round. In the first round, I got the highest vote. Then the other serious candidates started really campaigning for their seats, for their position. Then it became heated, it became quite competitive. And then 20th March was the final round of election. But on 10th March of 2011, His Holiness the Dalai Lama announced that there will be a separation of church and state. Whoever is elected will have to handle all the political and administrative responsibilities. Now, I'm very new to administration, far less to politics. Now, there you have the biggest shoes of His Holiness Dalai Lama to fill in. Now, what would you do if you're faced with that choice? As it is, you're accidental. You just happen to run. You just happen to lead. Now, His Holiness Dalai Lama says, whoever is elected, fill in my shoes, take the Tibetan struggle forward, you're on your own. I ran with the hope that, because he was the political head, whatever political decision I make, go to him, get his endorsement and signature, and show it to Tibetans and say, this is endorsed by His Holiness Dalai Lama. You criticize me, you risk going to hell. So there will be less criticism. But then His Holiness tells me, no, you have to sign on your own. You go to people directly. I say, it's your decision. So the prospect of me being criticized was very high. Then I said, what should I do? I have only 10 days left to decide. Normally you can give reasons like, oh, because of my family reasons, because my young family, I withdraw. You can give some reasons. But then, Tibetan community election is a diaspora of Tibetans are scattered in 40 countries. If you give that kind of reason, you are gone forever because you're not withdrawing from a political or politician's position. You're withdrawing from freedom struggle. Hence, you have to think through very carefully because I'm the front runner. If I withdraw, they will say you are running away from responsibilities of being a freedom struggle. That's not good. I had no choice. But then to think that I have to fill in the shoes of His Holiness Dalai Lama, I have to lead the Tibetan freedom struggle, face the Chinese government, the next superpower with all its might, was also a daunting task. Now, instead of reaching paralysis through analysis, I said, what the heck? I'll take it, I'll do it. Let karma decide the fate, the collective karma and individual karma. Sometimes decisions are made very simply. I'll leave it to my karma. So when you write a dissertation also, don't analyze too much, right? What do you think? And leave it to your karma. Sometimes it's better that way. Otherwise, you get overwhelmed, no? Can you imagine, look at the history of Tibet, where Tibet is, where Chinese government is, where China is, look at where international community is. My job, in some sense, is very simple. I have to sit in my office in Dharamsala, a remote place in India, a small town, and travel around the world and influence the international community, including America, Europe, and New Zealand, to persuade Chinese government to solve the issue of Tibet peacefully. Now, if there's any volunteer who can convince the government of New Zealand, who will press the Chinese government to solve the issue of Tibet, I will take that person as my right-hand man. Now I have to convince the international community that they will persuade the Chinese government to solve the issue of Tibet. It's quite daunting, no? Oh, there's one volunteer here. Now, that was the prospect. And then if you go by history, the sufferings of my family, Tibetan people, inside Tibet, on a daily basis, you don't get to read much, only bad news, tragic news. As you might have read, 146 Tibetans have committed self-immolation. They have burned themselves. One in 2009, but the second one was on March 16, 2011. So of the remaining 145 happened during my time. Now, there you have to do fundraising, you have to travel around the world, very daunting. But then, that's why I said, instead of reaching paralysis through analysis, you just say, I leave it to my karma, and I'll run. And after 10 days, I got elected the first term, and His Holiness Dalai Lama said, very good, now, you're on your own. So, but I do get to meet with him all the time and seek audience and seek his advice. And his advice are very profound and wise, and you implement those advice. So that keeps me going. But the difference is constitutionally and institutionally, we separated the church and the state. Hence, every decision is mine. So there are plenty more criticism than my predecessor. I can understand that. So in short, this is how it happened. So if any one of you taking politics as your class, chances of you being elected is pretty high if you simplify your thoughts. Number two, now what is the job of Tibetan administration? There are Tibetans, 40 countries, we have to keep connected. In New Zealand, we have less than 100 Tibetans, but I have to show up. Not only show up to Auckland, which is the biggest city, I have to come to Dunedin. There are only 9 Tibetans, but I have to show up. They will say, what about us? You travel around the world, meet every Tibetan. You should come here in Dunedin also and meet with Tibetans. And here I am at Buddhist Center. Rinpoche is here. The resident teacher is here. Now, our resident teacher from Christ Church has already said, I better come next time to his place also, otherwise he'll be angry. Now, having monk angry, that doesn't bode well for my next life, no? So then I have to travel a lot. So almost 40% of my time is traveling and showing up. Now, if I show up here, because I'm a bit deprived of sleep, actually, since I left Dharamsala. Now, if I show up very sleepy and drowsy and jaded, some of you will say, oh, my goodness, Tibetan case is hopeless. Tibetan president came here, he is so sleepy, so drowsy, it didn't make any sense, right? Now, I have to stand on my feet, despite being sleep deprived. I have to put on a bit of energy and make sense, even though I'm not making sense, I know that. But you have to. So traveling around. Why? Because we have to connect with our people, the Buddhist centers, Tibetan community, encourage youngsters to maintain their Tibetan culture, Tibetan language, encourage them. So that's what I do. And then go to various capitals to persuade leaders all over the world to be aware of the situation in Tibet and support the Tibetan cause. So I'm going to Wellington tomorrow. So as a Buddhist, I'm always optimistic. The test will be whether Wellington is a willing town for Tibetan cause or not. Will be tested tomorrow. So I will go and meet with those whoever meet with us. And then Tibetan way of thinking is His Holiness advice, is we meet with those who want to meet with us. Don't complain about those who don't want to meet with us. Because given a choice, we do believe, sincerely, we believe we all have Buddha nature. Essentially, human beings are by nature good. You become bad for various reasons, but essentially we all are good. So even those politicians and leaders in Wellington are essentially good. Given a choice, they would like to meet with me. I know that. But I know Chinese Prime Minister Li Keqiang came recently. Trade deal is up in the air. Negotiation is taking place. So I might be an obstacle for that. I understand that. So I don't want to be an obstacle. For some, I might be the reason why their consultation fees after they leave the government will be decreased if they shake hands with me or be seen in the same room. I understand that also. So we have no complaints, really. So that's how we think, because essentially, Tibetan cause has to be solved by sheer hard work of the Tibetan people. Now you might think, oh, that's an impossible task because 6 million Tibetans, 1.3 billion Chinese, and 1.2 billion Han Chinese. So we are just 0.5%. Chinese are 99.5%. So for every Tibetan, there are 199 Chinese. Odds are against us. We know that. But as Martin Luther King said, when I reach the mountaintop, that is his famous speech, I see a great America. And when I heard his speech, I said, that's easy. We are mountain people, Tibetans. We climb mountain all the time. So, so if that's all you have to do, climb mountain to see this vision, great vision, I said, hey, we climb mountains all the time. Secondly, we do live in the mountains. Average height of Tibetan mountain is 4,000 meters high. And you might know, we also climbed from 3,000 meters to 4,000 meters only 3,000 years ago. You know why? Because up to 3,000 meters, wheat grow. Above that, the wheat cannot grow. So we discovered barley. So we moved up 1,000 meters higher with yaks. So it took us thousands of years, thousands of genetic adaptation for Tibetans to move up to 4,000 meters high. Chinese, they are from lowland. They will take thousands of years to get up there. So we conquered the mountain top of the world, the roof of the world. So hence, we've been there quite recently. It will take centuries for Chinese to come and conquer us. So that's what we believe. So the altitude favors us. And also attitude favors us because our attitude is rugged and resilient. Because the high mountains, the rivers, the forests, the deities and gods of Tibet favors us. And our aptitude also favors us. Why? Because our aptitude comes from Buddhism. Buddhism is 2,500 years old. Communism is 100 years old. There's no competition between the two. We will be there for another 2,500 years. Communism will be long gone. With the death of Fidel Castro, I think Cuba is changing. Raul Castro is there, changing. North Korea, I don't know. They're testing too many missiles. Tested. Now, China, it's, in name, it's Communist Party ruling, but actually it's quite confusing and interesting place, right? So there is Karl Marx, and there's a guy called Confucius also. You know, there are a lot of Confucius institutes established all over the world because China is a Confucius state. So there's Confucius guys there. A lot of Christianity inside China. So there's Jesus Christ. And market economy. So Das Capital, the guy is also there in China. And there's Buddha. So how can 5 of them get along? Someone has to win, no? In that debate, Mao Zedong, Karl Marx, no? And Adam Smith, Jesus Christ, Buddha, all there. They all are talking to each other, what to do, what to do. I'm pretty sure Buddha will prevail. So hence, some of you might think odds are against us. No, we do believe odds are in our favor. I sincerely do. Now, some of you might think, oh, we are nonviolent, peaceful Tibetans. How can you succeed? It does. And we have Peace Center here. The center has grown from small to large center now in almost a decade. I think during our lifetime, we have seen nonviolence succeed and peaceful means succeed. When Nelson Mandela was put behind bars, 28 years in prison, 8 years in solitary confinement. Many obituaries were written about him. Forget about Nelson Mandela restoring democracy in South Africa. He will not be able to free himself. He did. Gandhiji, Mahatma Gandhi, oh, look at this guy in loincloth, walking stick. What can he do to mighty British Empire? The sun never sets. He did. And we all saw what happened in the Berlin Wall. And I was told a story when I met the Nobel laureate Lew Walliser. He told me the then foreign minister of West Germany and chancellor visited him. Then foreign minister of West Germany asked him, what do you make of all the students and youth surrounding the Berlin Wall? And Lew Walliser told them, hey, the wall is going to come down. You better be prepared. And then foreign minister of West Germany said, oh, that's the trouble I would like to see, but it's not going to happen in my lifetime. Can you imagine? Then foreign minister of West Germany, I repeat, he said, I would like to see that kind of trouble, but it's not going to happen in my lifetime. 2 weeks later, wall came down, history changed, right? So don't believe in all these pundits and professors and cynics and business professors, and not peace professors, business professors, who says that, you know, the Chinese economy will keep growing, they will getting stronger, no one can change anything. No one predicted all these things that's happening around the world. Especially if you follow the rational choice theory. That's the basis of academia. Everything has to be rational. I am from irrational choice theory business, you know. So we have proven them wrong more often than not. Berlin Wall, Nelson Mandela, Indonesia and East Timor, right? Aceh, also just recently. And who would have thought the Good Friday Agreement would be signed between Scottish and Ireland? I know, Dunedin, you have some Scottish heritage. But who would have thought that all this would have happened? It all happened during our lifetime. Still, I'm asked this question, do you think you have a chance? And I said, yes. Realistically, tell me, do you have a chance? I said, realistically, I'm telling you there's a chance. So with all these things happening, and the Peace Center will be able to convey you in more depth, that we do have a chance. I do believe, Tibetans, we have a chance. And we will succeed for all these reasons. Now, when we say we do succeed, you know, it might sound as though we are being a little arrogant, overconfident, nothing like that. Our struggle is based on humility or Buddhist-based compassion. Our path is nonviolent. Because what we believe is that if you want solution to be peaceful, the process has to be peaceful. Hence, Tibetans have adopted nonviolence as a means. Gandhian ahimsa as a means to have a peaceful solution of the Tibet issue. Hence, we separate the Chinese government policies and Chinese people. We say Chinese government policies, hardline policies are wrong, but you can't blame the Chinese people because there are many good Chinese people who support you, who care for you, who actually appreciate Tibetan culture and Tibetan civilization. Now, as we speak, Larungar Monastery is being demolished. Larungar has 12,000 monks and nuns. It's being reduced to demolition, reduced to 5,000 monks and nuns. As we speak, this 12 months project of the Chinese government. Now, in Larungar, there are few thousand Chinese monks and nuns as well. Even they are expelled from Larungar. In Yashingar, 5,000 nuns, of which 1,000 are expelled. And they have to sign a pledge never to come back to the monastery and never practice Buddhism as well. There was a very disturbing footage of some nuns being made to dance to a modern song in front of Chinese officials. This is the state of denial of religious freedom in Tibet, because the idea or the strategy is cultural assimilation. Make Tibet into China, make Tibetans into Chinese. But they will not succeed again, because by 1962, Tibet was occupied in 1959. By 1962, the Red Army destroyed 98% of monasteries and nunneries. 99.9% of monks and nuns were disrobed. Tibetans were forced to wear Mao suit. And then Chinese government, the Communist Party of China, thought they won. Look at them. No monasteries, no nunneries, no monks, no nuns, no Buddhism. But then, fortunately, His Holiness Dalai Lama and 80,000 Tibetans have fled to India. In India, we rebuilt all the major monasteries. We revived Buddhism in India. From India, it went back to Tibet, and it has spread across the world. So that is the resilience of the Tibetan people. A civilization which was destroyed, 99.9%, was rebuilt in India, revived back in Tibet and around the world. That's why we believe in ourselves. So as we speak, again, the cultural revolution is revived in Tibet. They're destroying Tibetan monasteries. They're disrobing Tibetan monks and nuns. But it will not work, because the spirit of the Tibetan people will fight, will challenge forever. And peace, I do believe, will prevail in Tibet. Now, I am also asked to touch on the environmental aspect of Tibet issue. So I'll end with that. Now, supporting Tibet issue is not simply supporting 6 million Tibetans. The Asia as a whole and the world has to support Tibet and Tibetan people for their own sake. Now, let me give you some reasons. Number one, Tibet is called the third pole because after Antarctica and Arctic, Tibet has the third largest reserve of ice or glaciers. There are 46,000 glaciers in Tibet. The difference being in Antarctica and Arctic, when they melt, it goes to ocean. But when the Tibetan glaciers melt, it forms fresh water, stream into river. All the major rivers of Asia flow from Tibet. Brahmaputra River, which is the lifeline of Bangladesh as a country, and northeast of India, Assam as a state, start from Tibet, goes to India, to Bangladesh. Indus River and Satluj River start from Tibet to Kashmir to Pakistan. Now, India and Pakistan are talking about water sharing treaty. But actually, both the rivers start from Tibet. The famous Mekong River, the Mekong Delta of Vietnam, start from Tibet. Salween River start from Tibet. Irrawaddy River, lifeline for Southeast Asian countries. Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, start from Tibet. Yangtze River, we all have read, those who are studying water crisis, major dams built on Yangtze River, the largest dams in the world, start from Tibet. Yellow River, the cradle of Chinese civilization. Now, Chinese civilization is built on the banks of Yellow River, but the seed of Yellow River starts from Tibet. Even the Chinese civilization, in that sense, is planted with the blessing of Tibetan water. So, with all these rivers, 1.4 billion people survive on fresh water flowing from Tibet. Hence, Tibet is vital for Asia, for that region, and for the world. And also, if you go by the climate change, the jet stream over Tibet affects climate all the way to Latin America, Europe, heat wave in Europe last year, perhaps this year also, 2 years ago, this year also, there are a lot of people are predicting heat wave. Northeast of India and Asia region, again, start from Tibet. Because of the altitude, right? Mist form over ocean, turns into cloud, and hits the Tibetan plateau. Moving that side provides monsoon and river to Southeast Asia and East Asia. Moving this side affects South Asia and Central Asia. So Tibet is vital as far as climate is concerned, weather is concerned, and rivers are concerned. Hence, Chinese government and Chinese companies are building not just one or two, 10, 20 dams per river. Why? Because China has 19% of the world population, but only 11 or 12% of fresh water, which means 8 to 9% of Chinese population, which is equivalent to 400 million Chinese people are facing a scarcity of fresh water now. Situation in India is worse. Situation in Bangladesh is worse. Situation in Pakistan is worse. Now Tibet is the water tower. A Chinese government is sitting on top, building dams. They're controlling the flow of rivers. If the water scarcity reaches a crisis, then you can divert rivers towards China and deprive your neighboring countries by building dams. So hence, restoring the stewardship or the ownership of Tibetan plateau to Tibetan people is a wise thing to do. Because for centuries, we did not charge even a penny for all the fresh water we provided to 1.4 billion people. Had we charged $1 per year, we will be getting $1.4 billion a year. We would have been the richest country in the world if we charged $100 per year, no? But we did not. Hence, restoring the Tibetan plateau to Tibetan people is vital, so that nature is respected based on Buddhist sense of compassion, because one of the basic folktale of Tibetan community is 4 harmonious brothers or friends, because you have to live in harmony with nature, with river, with trees, with forest. It's part of our culture, it's part of our values, it's part of our ethos. Hence, we respected the natural flow of rivers for all these centuries because we want to share. Now you have to have water sharing agreement. Unfortunately for the Chinese government, they have not signed any of the UN Convention on water sharing. So that means they are not obligated to share water with neighbors. Obviously, when during the South China Sea issues, even when the UN tribunal decided a case against you vis-a-vis Philippines, the Chinese government said, we don't care. Right? Now, hence, environmentally, Tibet is vital. Now, finally, let me end by saying that why you should know about Tibet, because if you truly want to understand China, you have to know the Tibetan story. If government of New Zealand and leaders of New Zealand, if you want to get a very good deal on trade deal that is being negotiated now, reviewed now, you have to understand the Tibetan story. Then you will truly understand China. If you don't understand that, you have trade deficit against you, you will be on the losing side. Now let me tell you a few things. For example, in South China Sea, these airfields are being built on islands. And everybody is saying, what's going on? China is building airfields. What's going on? What is this? In Tibet, Chinese government has built 5 airfields already. They're building 1 more. So if airfield is built somewhere else, it was already built in Tibet. Now everybody's talking about one belt, one road. This is good for Central Asia. This is good for world. This is a major infrastructure project. Well, the occupation of Tibet started with road, highway from China to Tibet. When it was first built, they said it's for your prosperity. It's for your own benefit. Even here, Tutenla is from Auckland. He was telling me when he was young, he used to bunk classes from his teacher and used to help Chinese build roads because they give you silver coins. When Chinese came to Tibet, there was a song in Tibetan language which said, Chinese are like our parents. When they come, they shower you with silver coins. They gave us silver coins to build roads. We took the money, we built roads. Once the roads were completed, trucks came, tanks came, occupied our country. Our trucks are still driven around our forest, cutting trees, driven around our natural resources, 123 different kinds of minerals in Tibet, trillions of dollars worth. I think largest copper mining in China is in Tibet, in Zomda area. Iron ore, uranium, borax, you just name it. Everything. So they took our real estate, they took our minerals. So one belt, one road happened in Tibet already. Once I was giving a talk in Mysore University, 2 African students asked me, what do you make of all the investment, Chinese investment in Africa? I said, did they build good roads? Yes. Did they build good entertainment centers? Yes, the biggest cricket stadium, the football stadium is all built by Chinese. Yes, that's good because then we get distracted by entertainment. Do they co-opt your leaders? They said, yes. Then they asked me, how do you know about our country? I said, it happened to us 60 years ago. The same template, the blueprint is implemented around the world. So unless you know the Tibet story, you will not know China. So we also signed 17-point agreement with Chinese government on May 23rd of 1951. It promised us 1 country, 2 system. In writing, stamped by Chinese government, authority of Dalai Lama will remain the same. No reforms will be introduced in Tibet without consultation and consent of the Tibetan people. Signed in writing. I said, thank goodness. We didn't like it. It was forced on us. But there is at least an autonomous arrangement. Year after year, for 51 to 59, there was regression on the autonomy. There was denial of autonomy, violation of autonomy from their side. As people in Hong Kong are saying now, oh, we have 1 country, 2 system. It's been regressing. They are violating. Yes, it happened to us 60 years ago. It's happening to you now. So people in Taiwan and Hong Kong are saying, we don't want to be like Tibet. So what happened to us 60 years ago is happening around the world. So 60 years ago, had New Zealand and other countries supported us or stood up for us, perhaps we could have discouraged the expansionist design of China. We could have diluted the efforts. Then hence their expansion won't come to South China Sea, East China Sea, Scarborough Island, and all the neighboring countries. So when it happened, we were told, it's too bad, but good luck to you. You are an exception. It's not going to happen to us. Now all the neighboring countries are saying, it's exactly happening to us. I said, we've been telling you for 60 years. It happened to us. It could happen to you. You never listened to us. Now you want to know. Even now, you don't want to know, you think Tibet is an exception. No. Now, I'm from Dharamsala in India, where the Tibetan administration is based. Our server, the computer server, is in big demand. The monk school of Toronto University came and did research, and they have a report. What they found out, now everybody is interested in server of Dharamsala. Why? Because all the malware and the Trojans that they get in Pentagon and multi-billion-dollar companies originated in our server, Tibetan server in Dharamsala. Because they send those Trojans and malware to Dharamsala, hack our computers, they improvise, improve, and send it around the world. So even the hacking of computers originate now through the town of Dharamsala, through Tibetan server. So if you want to know anything and everything about Chinese policies, it runs through Tibetan experience. And so you have to know what's happening to us for your own sake. So I hope tomorrow when I go to willing town of New Zealand, there will be willing leaders who will willingly listen to me and, and then say, we are with you. So there will be a powerful statement sent, because partly I'm here, too, here in university and to New Zealand, to remind the good people of New Zealand, and your country is founded on certain principles, certain values. And you have many proud moments in history. The Greenpeace movement, the treaty signed, and the often not standing up or not participating in war, let's say in Afghanistan or Iraq. So many issues where New Zealand have stood up, were admirable. Hence, we think Tibet also is an admirable cause, because this is a non-violent one. What we seek is simply genuine autonomy within China, within Chinese constitution. Because Chinese government says sovereignty and territorial integrity of China is non-negotiable. One China is non-negotiable. And Dalai Lama is very wise. He said, okay, we will not seek separation from China. We will not challenge China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, but the repression ought to end. Give us genuine autonomy as per Chinese laws. It's written in your laws. Just give us what's written in your laws, we'll take that as autonomy, as being as reasonable, as moderate as possible. I think the government and leaders of New Zealand can stand up and say, yeah, this is a very reasonable thing to do. Because presidents of America have met with His Holiness Dalai Lama. President Barack Obama met him 4 times. And the White House has officially issued statements saying, we are for one China policy, but we also applaud and support middle way approach. American government does not see contradiction between one China policy and middle way approach of His Holiness Dalai Lama. Middle way approach is middle of not seeking separation, but to end repression, but for Tibetans to get genuine autonomy. That is the middle approach. So American government has supported one China policy and also middle way approach. So why can't the New Zealand government can do the same? Because there is no contradiction between the two. So we also say, yes, engage with China, do business with China. If you can make profit with China, rest of the world are losing, China is making profit, trade deficit always against you, but nonetheless, good luck to you. You must do business, make profit. That we are not against. But what we are for is that New Zealand stand up for your own values and principles, for justice, for freedom, for human rights, for environmental rights. It's admirable that Greenpeace peace movement in some ways originated from here, right? Now that spirit has to revive again. So that's why I'm here, to request all the good people, good folks, to be with us. We will march together. Some of you are old friends of Tibet, so I can see some of you have gray hair, a few wrinkles. This gray hair is a hair of wisdom. And wrinkles that you have is demonstrating your audacity, being with the Tibetan people. And we will march together, and we will succeed sooner than later. That's why I left America. I came to India so that when the day comes, I'll be nearer to Lhasa than taking United Airlines, unless I get pulled out from the airplane, for overflight. So that's why I came to India. So when the day happens, I can cross over the mountain, go to Tibet quicker, perhaps be one of the first, if not the first person to wave the Tibetan flag in the capital city of Tibet, Lhasa, from the rooftop of Potala Palace, and from the window of Potala Palace, His Holiness Dalai Lama will wave at all of us, and we all will join the dance celebration with Maori tradition greetings to all of you, and we'll dance whole night and drink chang, Tibetan alcohol. His Holiness will also permit, at least for one day. Normally monks say, don't drink, don't lie, don't cheat. That day, I think they will permit us for a bit of chang also. So we'll go through the midnight and celebrate that day. And that day will come sooner than later. When the day comes, there will be another chapter where peace will prevail. The peaceful process will prevail. Peaceful result will prevail. Then we will say, Gandhiji succeeded. Nelson Mandela once again succeeded. Martin Luther King once again succeeded. His Holiness Dalai Lama once again succeeded in Tibet. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I take that as an affirmation of your optimism in the freedom of Tibet. So thank you.
Not just optimism, support. Willing support.
I think we have a little bit of time for some questions and comments. We have some roving microphones here. If you would like to ask any questions at all of Lobsang, he's very welcome to answer them. So is there anybody that would like to ask a question about the struggle, maintaining the diaspora, or whatever it might be?
Thank you for coming to New Zealand, Aotearoa. My question is, having recently spent some time in Nepal and seen the struggle in Nepal of the Tibetan refugees, how much are you able to support them at present?
Yes, situation in Nepal is a bit tragic in the sense Nepal, being a small country, has come under tremendous pressure from the Chinese government. Hence, now they train Nepali military personnel, police force, especially the border patrols are trained and partly financed by the Chinese government. Hence, Tibetans fleeing from Tibet through Nepal to India has dwindled considerably now. From few thousands, it is reduced to few hundreds. So Nepal is under tremendous pressure under the Chinese government. So perhaps one can make an argument that the most powerful embassy in Kathmandu is Chinese embassy, not US or Indian embassy. Mm-hmm. As far as Tibet is concerned, Tibet issue is concerned. Hence, since 1990, I think Tibetans are not issued residency card, meaning they are not just stateless, they are paperless. And then it's very difficult to send them to schools. They can send to private school, but once you get a degree, getting jobs, getting employment, starting a business is a challenge. So Nepal and Tibet had very strong, close relationship for centuries. When Nepal applied for its UN membership, they gave 7 evidence or 7 reasons. And number 1 or 2 was their treaty agreements with Tibet. That was the reason when they got UN membership. But now it has changed. So sadly, the situation of Tibetans in Nepal is also quite serious. India has been the biggest supporter of Tibetan people. Indian government, whichever party came to power, has been very biggest supporter. Recently, His Excellency, the President of India, Pranab Mukherjee, met with His Holiness Dalai Lama openly in public. So next year, when His Holiness Dalai Lama comes to New Zealand, I'm looking forward to Prime Minister of New Zealand welcoming His Holiness to his office. And also, the Culture Ministry of India, Indian government, organized an International Buddhist Conference where His Holiness Dalai Lama was the chief guest. So what India has been doing closed door is doing openly. So if Indian government is doing all that, I think it bodes well if New Zealand does it again. But India has been very good to us. Now, I was born and brought up in India. So I run an administration in India. Which country would have allowed our own administration, our own parliament, our own judiciary, our own settlements, hospitals, schools, things like that? I take pride in saying this because Tibetan administration is the most frugally run administration. Our budget is only $25 to $30 million a year, but we look after 100,000 people in India, 262 monasteries and nunneries, 72 schools, 14 hospitals and clinics. So we provide free education up to high school and to college as well. And we have 12 embassies or offices around the world for $25 to $30 million a year. Right? And as shared about my personal story, so I was employed at Harvard Law School for 7 years. I spent 16 years there. So I left my job. Now my current salary is 500 New Zealand dollars a month. A month, yes. And if you want to join my administration, you are welcome. So I have a very simple paper that you can sign and you get $500 a month. And I fly by economy class. Now I have big Untitled. I show up like this. I travel economy class. So I'm going to take 14 hours flight, right, back to Bangkok and Delhi in 2 days, I think, in economy. So why? This is a labor of love for us. So why would I leave America, or my colleagues have left Europe and major universities in Germany? We all are there in Dharamsala running this administration because this is a labor of love. Unless you have that values in you, the principles in you, you can't run a freedom struggle on a basis of luxury. You can't. So wherever I'm put up, here they're put up in a good hotel, sometimes I'm put up in a motel, sometimes I sleep in a guest room in settlements where they have a cotton mattress and a creaky bed with a Chinese blanket. The next day I'm somewhere maybe in Wellington in a 5-star hotel with swimming pool. So the Buddhist notion of impermanence really helps. Because you look out the window from a 30th floor, a very clean town, a city with swimming pool and sauna and everything, and next day you are in a refugee camp on a creaky bed with a Chinese blanket which smells a bit and with mosquitoes disturbing you at night. So unless you have a very strong sense of impermanence, right, it's very difficult to switch. So one day I'm a chief guest in a major event because I am the president, whatever. The next day I'm traveling by economy class with, everybody. And thank goodness I have some mileage card, frequent flyer. Otherwise, I will be sleeping on the floors wherever in airport. So sometimes Tibetans are embarrassed because, some of them, few of them, they fly business. When they see me, they're like, what to do now? They literally pull me to sit, take their seats, but I refuse because I should be there. Because if I go to business class, all my colleagues will come to business class. Then my budget will go haywire. So I have to impose discipline, but then I have to practice discipline first. So our system is a labor of love. So the rest of my staff will get less salary than me. So unless you are committed to that values, labor of love, you don't work for us. Hence, it's frugally, efficiently run. That's why we are able to provide free education up to high school, to college, everything. So this is the values inculcated in us by His Holiness Dalai Lama. So among the 60 million refugees and diaspora around the world, when we see Syria, crisis, things like that, we just feel bad. Many donors agencies are saying, we must replicate Tibetan model to all the refugee communities, where you run your own schools, when you run your own hospital, things like that. We keep all the consultants at bay. Because, New Zealand government gives, $10 billion, $100 million. Consultants take about 15 to 30 to 40%. We say, no, every penny comes to us. We just keep 7% as administrative cost. 93% goes direct to the project. We literally had some agencies, 8 agencies said that we gave you money last year. There's actually a school to see. I said, absolutely. In 9 months, we'll deliver your school or hospital or whatever. This is how we run things. So this is not just nonviolence in practice. peace process, but the values that we adopt, the efficiency that we adopt in our administration is something I think some communities can learn from and be better off.
Yes, in the middle there.
Thank you. It's been absolute delight to listen to you and to hear that passion that you have for your people. I was there last year, and in virtually every village that we went through in Tibet, there was a Chinese school. I wonder how much pressure there is for your people to attend the schools.
Yes, there's a lot of pressure. In China, according to our democracy, our administration, we call it democracy without borders, because Tibetans in 40 countries, they elect, vote my position. And oddly, the American freedom movement, that no representation, no taxation without representation, Boston Tea Party slogan, is opposite. Here, you have to pay freedom tax for Tibetans to be eligible to vote. If you don't pay tax, freedom tax is oxymoron, right? Who will pay tax? It's voluntary freedom tax, it's not voluntary. So you have to pay tax to vote. So that's how it is practiced in the Tibetan world. But as per the report of Journalists Without Borders, journalists have more difficulties getting access to Tibet than North Korea. This is the report. We all know, read about North Korea, it's in the front page of newspapers. But Tibet is more difficult to travel to for journalists. Now, just Freedom House has just come out with a report in the Freedom House Index. 2 years ago, in the Freedom House Index, Tibet is the bottom, just above Syria. It's the least free region in the world. Now, we all read about Syria on a daily basis. How many of you read about Tibet in the newspaper? But I got in Freedom House Index, after Syria is Tibet. Now, similarly in Tibet, they have imposed a grid system where nomads and farmers all are issued ID card with second-generation biometric chips in it, which means every travel movement is monitored. How? There are so many checkposts. If you go to Lhasa, every 20, 30 meters there's checkposts. Normally you take 5 minutes to go to buy vegetables. Now it takes about 25 minutes to 30 minutes because you have to go through checkposts. Now, every nomad and farmers, they have to swipe their card. Now, after a few years, they will track you and say, you're such a nomad from such a remote area. What were you doing in 10 different places? So you come under the suspicion. And also, the Chinese government, Xi Jinping himself, the Chinese leaders have said, security and stability of China is dependent on security and stability of Tibet. For Chinese government, Tibet is such a strategic asset. You can understand because in the whole border of Tibet covers the whole of South Asia, touches on Southeast Asia, touches on Central Asia, right? It's huge. It's 2.5 million square kilometers of land, as big as Western Europe combined. So I think several times larger than New Zealand, if I may say so, at least in size. Hence, they have imposed this kind of system. And even the education, they want to assimilate Tibetans into Chinese. Hence, middle school, high school, medium of instruction is Chinese. If you go to college, university, medium instruction is Chinese. Not just Chinese in general courses, even Tibetan history is taught both in Chinese and Tibetan language. So that kind. So, it's a cultural assimilation. They want to Sinicize Tibetan people. It's challenging, definitely.
Yes, other questions or comments? Yes, in the back. And then Peter.
Tēnā koe. My name is Kyra. Thank you for your amazing talk. So I'm just wondering, because New Zealand and globally there's quite a bit of a prison abolitionist movement, and I understand that a lot of Tibetans are held as political prisoners in Chinese prisons. I was wondering if you could speak a bit about Buddhist values around nonviolence and how that links to prisons. Yeah, thanks.
Yes, I think it is very difficult to say how many political prisoners are in Tibet. It's very difficult to get data. But there's one organization, the Tibetan Center for Human Rights and Democracy, has they have found up to 1,000 political prisoners in different prisons in Tibet. We just think, I think, number is much higher than that, because you don't know who is arrested, who is not arrested. This year, I think January, there was a report coming from Tibet Autonomous Region. We didn't have that report. It came out in the newspaper. It said that they had around 4,000 cases of detention and arrest. Now, it's very tricky. They say it's under criminal law. We suspect most of them are political prisoners. So there are actually, recently His Holiness Dalai Lama was giving a Kala Chakra teaching in Bodh Gaya. Nearly 200,000 people came from 92 countries. And we were expecting up to 10,000 from Tibet. But what happened was that they had now up to 3 or 4, maybe 5% of Tibetans in Tibet are issued passport. It's very difficult to get passport. There was a Tibetan blogger in Tibet who said, it's more difficult to get passport from the Chinese government than finding a path to go to heaven. It's that difficult. But nonetheless, some Tibetans got their passport, they got the visa, they came to India to seek teaching from His Holiness Dalai Lama. But they were told that by end of December, at least by 3rd of January, they all must return to Tibet. First announcement was made. Then we thought, okay, some people can get by. Personally, I know someone whose uncle was 80-some years old. He thought he can, find some loophole. But, everybody rushed back. Several thousand, they had to rush back. His Holiness going giving teaching. They have already in India. They panicked. They started going back. This old man thought, he told me at least, he knows the local village officers. They're in good terms, and he's already 80-some years old. Why bother about him? On 1st of January, his family called him and said, in 3 days, if you're not in Tibet, our house is already ransacked. All our relatives will lose their jobs. Subsidies will be cancelled. He rushed from Bodh Gaya to Delhi to Kathmandu. He barely landed in Lhasa. On 3rd day, he called and said, I'm here in Lhasa. Check the phone number. You can imagine. Now, all those thousands who have gone back, they are in deep trouble. They say, how did you get your passport? Why did you go to India? We have gone to seek spiritual teaching from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. You are in trouble. Now you are blacklisted. So these things are happening. And, I've met many of them. They come crying to your office. They're very sad, very crestfallen, because they waited and waited, not just for weeks, months, years. Once I met one woman in the plane. She just came and she was just crying, wailing. It took me 12 years to get this document. And in this window of 10 days, she managed to come to Dharamsala, had quick darshan, 2 minutes darshan with His Holiness, and she's going back. She said, my lifetime dream was fulfilled, I'm going back. Then she said, I won't be able to come back again. So you can clearly see these things. And then they all are, many of them are blacklisted, put in prison. They undergo a lot of sufferings. Still, Tibetans, as Buddhists, as per His Holiness advice, we are nonviolent. Still nonviolence is practiced. So even though 146 Tibetans have burned themselves as part of self-immolation, 146, of which 125 have died, right? I know it's a violent act to burn oneself. It's a violent act. and one would not burn oneself, one would not pinch oneself, one would not slap oneself. But when one burns oneself, that reflects how desperate the situation is. But yet how determined they are. They're saying, I would rather die than live in this situation. Even though it's a violent death, still it's not violence. Because if it's violence, you must harm someone, harm property or a person. 146 Tibetans burned themselves. They have not harmed a single Chinese person or a single Chinese property. They have not even jumped into a Chinese prison or a police car. They just burned themselves. So it's a violent death, but still they're not resorting to violence. So in that sense, I think our commitment for nonviolence is strong, even today.
Peter?
Is there any dialogue between the Central Tibetan administration and the Chinese leadership?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. In 1970s, late 70s, the delegation led by His Holiness Dalai Lama's elder brother, led by senior members of the Tibet administration, did go to China, did go to Tibet, with the permission of the Chinese government. Because by then, Deng Xiaoping was growing in stature, he was fully in control. Then two envoys of the Dalai Lama met with Chinese counterpart from 2002 to 2010. Despite all the challenges, there was dialogue, there was discussion. From 2002 to 2010, 9 rounds of dialogue took place. There was no breakthrough. So from the last visit was January of 2010. Now it's been 7.5 years, there was no dialogue between envoys with Dalai Lama and Chinese representatives. Even though our demand or our aspiration is very reasonable, genuine autonomy as per Chinese laws. Implement your laws, we'll take that as autonomy. So when you read about Watanga Agreement or the treaty between Maori people and New Zealand, you get the sense that even in high school you have to read the treaty. It's so binding. It's almost people in New Zealand made into a second nature to respect Maori tradition, Maori culture, Maori rights. As far as our agreement is concerned, 1951, it's not implemented, and what we seek is what is written in Chinese laws. It's there. These are the rights Tibetans enjoy, but not implemented. Now, to strengthen the dialogue, I spent 16 years, as I said, in the US. I was encouraging track 2, track 3 diplomacy. So here at the Peace Center, I'm also teaching the skills. So from my point of view, now Chinese government, foreign ministry spokesman of China is always angry at me. If I have dinner with American ambassador, they scold me next day. How can these splitties have dinner with American ambassador in India? If I meet a speaker of US House of Commons, they come blazing, criticize me. They try to label me terrorist and all kinds of things. But it's very difficult because that label will not stick with me because I spent 16 years in America talking to Chinese students and scholars. So I have a track record of encouraging or organizing conferences between Chinese and Tibetan scholars. So I have had participants from Beijing University, Contemporary Institute of International Relations, Academy of Social Science from Lhasa University. So top scholars from China used to come to my conference at Harvard. So I used to invite Chinese scholars as well. Now, how it all started was, I have met only 2 Chinese before I left India for America. Never met Chinese. One was ambassador's son, the Chinese ambassador to India. So obviously there was no breakthrough at all. He didn't like us, and not that I didn't like him, but I always knew that he was against us. So there was one professor from Chengdu University in Sichuan. He was quite sympathetic. So when I went to America, there were so many Chinese students and scholars. So there was barely any discussion. Whenever there was discussion, we landed up banging table and shouting at each other, So our perception towards them, even though non-violently, but our perception was perhaps deep dislike at that time. Then one day I had a Palestinian friend, so he's a close friend of mine. So whenever Israeli leaders are shown on television, he used to scream and shout and split at the screen of television. So when I see him, I was so, my goodness, such resentment. Huh? So, but one day he asked me, Lobsang, do you talk to Chinese? I said, why should we talk to Chinese? They occupied our country, they're repressing our people. Why should I talk? No, you must talk to them. I said, do you talk to Israelis? Yeah, we do. I talk to them all the time. I said, I see you splitting on TV screen. I never do that to Chinese leaders. You do, but how come you're talking? Yeah, we have to talk to each other. It was pretty serious. Later he became a legal advisor to Yasser Arafat also in Camp David. So he was saying, no, Jerusalem, the division or distribution of Jerusalem, as far as Israelis and Palestinian people are concerned, they have mapped out everything, including water pipe and water tank, and everything is mapped out. It's just the political will, lack of political will and courage. There is no settlement. Then I said, oh, if he is talking to Israelis, I better talk to Chinese. So I started talking to Chinese. Then I found some Chinese are very nice, very cooperative, very understanding, very supportive. So one thing led to another. I started organizing Chinese students and Tibetan students conferences, several. Then it became quite successful. Then formally, I started organizing conferences under the auspices of Harvard University. So they used to come. Now the challenge for students of Peace Center is, who do you invite? So I said, I'll go for the top. I'll invite Chinese officials who are working for Tibet, on Tibet issue. Once you change their mind, Tibet solution is a done deal. When you bring these people, they are the hardest nut to crack. Oh my God, they are so conservative, so hardliner. No, it doesn't matter how much you say, they throw right back at you, I said, my goodness, this is not working. So next time, I said, okay, I'll bring those Chinese scholars who agree with you. Then a bunch of them came. They are so pro-human rights, pro-democracy. They almost agree everything that you say. But then the prospect of them going back and influencing the Chinese government is zero. Prospect of them going in jail is higher because they are quite liberal mindset in China. Now what to do? The hardliners not working, liberals good to listen to, but no result, right? Now what am I supposed to do? Then I started bringing Tibetans, few Tibetans also. So they are like almost scolding you in formal setting. You exile Tibetans, please. They parrot the propaganda line. It's like Tibetans scolding Tibetan in front of other people. Doesn't look nice. But privately, we are with you. Huh? I say, it doesn't help telling me private. Why don't you say publicly? If I say publicly, I go to jail. I can never come back. So then later, I started mixing up. I brought one or two hardliners, one or two liberal, one or two Tibetans, mixed them up. And the beauty of the proceeding was the dialogue among themselves. The hardliners is something, the liberal doesn't agree, the Tibetan agrees, doesn't agree, then they get into this debate. It was beautiful. Then I said, okay, then the formal proceeding, presentation is not good, not productive. So, what happens is that the proceeding is 2 hours in the morning, 10 to 12. Breakfast from 8 to 9:30, hour and a half breakfast. 10 to 12, in between half an hour tea break, 2 hours lunch, 2 hours discussion, formal discussion, 2 hours or 3 hours of dinner, sometimes it goes to midnight. So more free time, more informal time, more wine keeps flowing, more discussion takes place. So the formal is 4 hours, informal is 10 hours. And the informal setting, more discussion takes place. So then mix them up. So I hope it won't be a solution for Peace Center, all those people. You told me that you're all doing PhDs and pacifism and negotiation and conflict resolution, things like that. But I learned through this experience. But once I got elected, not even an email sent to them, not even an email sent by them to me. You risk their job, their career. Then 16 years of relationship, 16 years of network all over China, but it's useless once I'm in a formal position. Then what to do? But I do believe when the right moment comes, I think things will happen. So it's for the right moment. So the karma has to click. I hope it's sooner than later.
Good. One last question, and then I think we'd better... Yes.
I apologise for the way I've approached you, but I've been thinking very hard about things that are going on in the world today, and I believe there is a way for us to work together as a society and as the human race. I think there are other possibilities that we could run this world from that we have not explored so far yet. I think there are many possibilities that we could bring together a change if we decided that we don't need to fight amongst each other. We need to live together with each other. I do have a plan of my own. Pardon me, may I continue speaking?
Yes, we need to be a little bit brief because we need to. Do you have a question?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, yeah, thank you.
I will thank you.
Okay, oh. Can I thank them before you thank me?
You can.
Okay. Now, I just want to say thank you. Yeah, it's a delight to be here. I'm honored. And really, it's very kind of you to come this evening to spend some time. And your presence means a lot because it does send a message to Tibetans inside Tibet. They will know where is Sikyong going. So we have our own website where we'll say, oh, we went to Dunedin and I was hosted here and all of you turned up. And then it sends a message of encouragement and inspiration to Tibetans. It's, oh, there are people who listen to you. I don't know whether there will be many in Willingtown, but here in Dunedin, there were people who came and listened and support. And generally, I do believe your support and your presence is a support for peace, support for justice, and support for freedom. And you know, we always talk about changing the world, but one has to change with individuals, and then your individual contribution and presence also send a small message to Beijing that we are here with you. All we want is a fair deal for Tibetan people, a reasonable deal, and that's all we are seeking. And so I really, really want to thank all of you for coming here, and especially to the University and Peace Center for hosting me. It's a great honor and privilege. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Tonga has, in a Maori way, strengthened all of our resolve to work alongside you and the Tibetan people to make sure that your struggle for self-determination and for autonomy within China is realized in your lifetime. We want to thank you for your humility, for traveling economy class, for coming.
So you can sponsor me business class. I'm just
for coming and sharing your vision, your optimism, your humility, and your compassion, and for reminding us that there are people in Tibet, even as we speak, who are suffering as a consequence of this occupation, that the monasteries are still under attack, that you're not safe in Dar es Salaam, and sometimes you're not safe in other parts of the world as well. So I hope that you leave here supported by this group, supported by the New Zealand people, and I hope that the willing people in Wellington will indeed support you and your effort so that sooner rather than later you and His Holiness the Dalai Lama will be able to wave to the people of Tibet from Lhasa.
Thank you.
And I'm giving Lobsang if you'd like to open it, it's a little piece of Maori greenstone to take with you as a reminder of our solidarity from one people to another.
Thank you. Beautiful, yes. I'll put it right here.
Right there.
I would also like to thank you for hosting me and offer you another white scarf.
Oh. Thank you. Thank you.
So, white represents purity of heart, and it has 8 auspicious symbols. It has Tashidelic in character. So Tashidelic means good wishes. So 8 auspicious symbols means good luck, good health, good tenureship, everything good, good center as well. And this is my official memento from Tibetan administration. It says, in profound appreciation of your support to Tibetan people in Tibet, Central Tibetan Administration. So this will get you a visa to go to China.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. And thank you all for coming, and may you join this struggle, which is a long and arduous one, but we will prevail. Because if you're accustomed to living in mountains, then the mountains have no fear for you, and you see the world from them. So thank you once again very much.
Thank you.
So come and